All right, welcome everyone. Yeah, so today's topic will be that it's never too late to lose. And the reason I want to show this topic is because I've recently had a couple of games where I lost the position that I thought there was never any risk of losing. And not just me, but even top players sometimes lose positions where it seems like there's just no way to lose. And being aware of that kind of helps us improve our sense of danger in any position, right? Not let the brain relax. Even if we have winning position or drawn position or whatever, even if it's a position that you feel like you can't lose. So I want to start with the game I played with Black against Pavel Ulyanov. Pavel Ulyanov at that time was 27-34, and he was as high as top 10 in the world at some point. And this was the first game in the World Cup. And as you can probably see in this position, White is clearly much better. I mean, just compare White's pieces to Black's. Black's pieces are all passive on the first three ranks. White has a dominant knight on d6. Black has weakness on c6. Like, White is just much better. It's just a question of whether or not White can break through. But you know, the answer, of course, is yes. I mean, such passive positions are almost never held. So the question is, what do you think White should do here, and why? Of course, this is only the beginning. There's going to be a lot of other interesting moments in this game later on. Of course, White has many ways to get an advantage, but there's, I think, one way that's like very clear. Like, after, if you would have found this idea, I couldn't do anything. And you guys could, okay. Okay, so you have to make sure that if you suggest something, you have to give a clear solution. Don't say this or this. Usually in my exercises, there's going to be a difference. So try to decide on something concrete, right? Because that's a little bit of a lazy approach, this or this, right? Because in many positions, there's like especially on chess tempo, if you do tactics, there's going to be two solutions that look like should be good, look like winning, but only one of them is, right? So you have to understand the differences. Okay, I don't think we need to really stop b5 because I don't really think b5 is that big of a deal. So I don't think we really need to play a4 here. I think what Black probably wants here is to play f4 and try to block the king side, which is why king g3 or king e3 is inaccurate. He'll go f4 and he'll stop all of our play. So Rayo, why don't you go ahead and unmute and yeah, and explain.
So I'm gonna go f4 because, like you said, Black's next move is gonna be f4, closing up the position, and then it's not gonna be that easy to win. After f4, I mean, he can take on f4 or g4.
Right.
F takes g4 is probably better, but if g takes f4, g takes f5, pawn takes f5, rook f3.
Yeah, I would even suggest king f3. Maybe rook f3 is also good. I like king f3 because that activates our worst placed piece. But yeah, it's good enough. Yeah, and of course, if knight takes, take, Black's position collapses. And if fg, what do we do?
Pawn takes g5, pawn takes g5, king g3.
Yeah, very good.
And if knight f5 check, or just take and rook c6.
Right, very good. Yeah. So the point here is that all of our pieces are very active, right? Every single one of them, except for our king. So f4 conveniently activates our king, which is very, very important. Once we activate our last piece and we break through, because of the way black's position is so passive, black is just completely doomed. And of course, there would be very inaccurate to do this first, because then after f4, black can play g4, and black's still hanging on here. So f4 would have been the cleanest, but white played d5, which is also kind of an interesting idea, and trying to also break through. So I have to take cd, really the only move. And now my opponent played rook c7, which is a little inaccurate. Move knight b5 was better. If you would have played knight b5, I'm still in quite a lot of trouble, actually. Probably losing anyway. But he played rook c7, so he actually gives me a little bit of a chance. So now I kind of gave it away a little bit here, unfortunately, but let's try to figure this out. What do you think black should play here? So if we play f4, white will probably go knight b5 here. And yes, it's true, we block the king side, but the problem is still, it's going to be very difficult. Knight's going to go here, rook on c3. This is going to be weak, and white rook will go to b7. So f4 looks good, but we're still having problems with our pieces. Our pieces are still very passive, and we're probably not going to be able to hold this. All right, Ryo's got it, but let's see if anyone else gets it. All right, Sanjana, do you want to go ahead and explain? Let's call on you. Okay, so let's see. Where's? Yeah, let me just find her. It's a lot of people. So okay.
So another idea is to play b5, and if knight takes b5, then knight c6, and it's difficult to defend the e5 pawn.
We'll talk about this position separately, but basically b5 is a must. We have to somehow create a communication between the knight and the rook, right? Because if we don't play b5, if we just play here, both of our pieces, the knight on e7 and the rook on a6, are basically dead meat, right? They cannot really do very much, right? It's very passive, especially the knight on e7. So at least when we play b5, we give up the pawn, but we create the communication between our pieces. Now, here comes knight takes b5. Now, this is a separate important position, actually, how to play. Here, there's actually, this was move 40, unfortunately, so I didn't get a lot of time to think. And here, I did not find the right idea here. What do you guys think black should do here? Several people suggested knight c6 right away, but if we play knight c6, I believe the problem is we can take, and if knight e5, rook e3, and after takes, there's e6, and yeah, this looks kind of bad for black, actually. So there's a better way to play. Rook c6 is what I played, but you know, there was a problem with that move as well. I mean, I saw actually what he can do after rook c6, but I thought that's still the best I can do. So f4 doesn't help very much, I think, because the knight d4. Still, our pieces are going to be very passive, and here we're not even up a pawn. Then he goes rook c3, rook c5. It's, you know, just bad position. Rook c8. Interesting, but I think I can play rook c3, and then there's still problems. Rook c7, knight d4, and stuff like that. Rook b8, and then knight c6, rook b8, and then rook c6, rook b8, we go knight d4. So, yeah, rook b8, d4. You guys can hear me well, right? Because I just got this message, my internet connection is unstable. hope you guys can hear me well. Oh, you can't hear well? Oh, oh, I see. Oh, I see. Okay, so I have a problem with my internet connection. Interesting. So, oh, it's better now? Yeah, I don't know what was the issue. Okay, well, sorry about that. I don't know if I can't really, hard to control this. Okay, good. Okay, so what do you think black should do then? There is one way to play after which black is actually totally fine. See if anyone can find it. So as I already mentioned, knight c6, there's g takes f5, and then e6. Yeah, rook c6 is what I played. We'll get to that in a second. D4, probably also not good enough. We're going to be down a pawn now, and probably still not that great. All right, Vihan, do you want to go ahead and talk? Yeah, let's see. Vihan, where's Vihan?
G takes F takes G4 because and then F takes G4 knight C6.
Right. Yeah, and so and what happens after rook F3, king here, and then rook F6, let's say, or rook F7. Okay, no worries. Yeah, so you basically here you can actually play knight E5, right? And rook F7, you can play rook F8. That's the point. Yeah, and you're able to get out of this situation. Yeah, so it's a little bit counterintuitive. Like you're actually opening the file for him. Looks very dangerous, but in fact, we're taking away the option of him taking on F5, and this giving him this pawn. So after this and knight C6, this is a different story. We're hitting E5, and white really cannot do anything on that F file because of rook F8. So yeah, it's a little bit of an unusual, nice idea I had. Yeah, I did not find it. I played rook C6. What should white do now? All right, very good. Yes, of course we play knight D4. And when I played rook C6, I saw he can play knight D4. That was my intention actually. I was gonna sack the the pawn and hopefully get some counterplay here with D4 and stuff like that. But it was not the best. I mean, FG and knight C6 was better. So anyway, after this, he played knight B5. And here I made a mistake. I should have played F takes G4. I should have played F takes G4 and meet this with G3. King G2, and then let's say rook B8. And black is losing, but it's kind of, well, not losing. Black is worse, but it's not completely losing. But yeah. I played rook D5, and the problem is I miscalculated here. Because he played E6, this move I saw. Of course, if king takes, then knight C7, king F6, and knight takes D4. And the problem was I miscalculated here. I thought he cannot really do that, but because of knight C6. But the problem is, of course, he takes, and then E7, right? And king and knight E5, and I get forked in the end. So I can't play knight C6. King E5 also does not work because of G takes F5. And also knight F5, rook D3, E7 also does not work. So suddenly I realized I don't have a great move. F4 does not help that much either. I think even we just move the king. So I decided to try rook D6. But of course, I already knew that this is not what I wanted. I'm already down 2 pawns, and I don't have like even a real threat. And when he played before, I realized that I still don't have a threat because king E5 As always, G takes f5. Knight f5, knight f5 takes e7. So there's just never, I can never create a threat here. So I played f4, b5, king e5. But the problem is I'm still not threatening to take the knight. And so he played rook d2. And I cannot take the knight. And I cannot go knight c6. I cannot do anything. Yeah, I just cannot stop both the pawns. Pretty simple to calculate. So I played back. And what else do I have? It's just going back and forth, hoping that he doesn't find the way to break through. So this is really, now we see a position where it looks like, okay, there's just no way white can lose. Like, how can you lose? Up 2 pawns, completely risk-free. But as you'll see, the result was 0-1. So there is a way to lose if you're not careful. And around here, Elianov later on admitted on Facebook that he already was looking forward to the second game of the match. And he already had kind of mentally checked out of this game and said it's going to 1-0. Now, what happens sometimes is when you already have this mentality that you're already like not so interested in the game, and your opponent keeps fighting and shows good resistance, you can really lose focus, right? And if the game drags on for too long, you're getting impatient because in your mind, you already won the game, right? And then you can start making impatient decisions because of that. And as we'll see, this is kind of what happened. Okay, so here he played king e1. It's okay. I think king e2 is slightly more accurate. And because I have two defensive ideas, king e5 or knight d5. If I play king e5, he's going to go king d1, king c2, king b3. Eventually, he's going to bring the king to the queen side and win the game. Or I can try knight d5, but then knight d5, he can go king d3. And this is probably even easier. So I think king e2 is more accurate. Depending on where I go, he decides where he moves the king. But anyway, the point is he needs to bring the king to the queen side. Like that's the winning plan. Okay, well, he played king e1. So I tried knight d5. I figured, okay, like why not try to bother him a little bit with a knight, maybe, and see what happens. Now, as it turns out, he can still win pretty easily with king d1, knight e3, king c1, knight c4, because he has e7 in the end. So I don't have this counterplay, which means that he will be able to still bring the king to the queen side. But it's a little harder now. He actually has to calculate a line. So he thought he can play rook e2. And he actually calculated a couple of lines and he thought, okay, looked winning to him. But it turns out it wasn't winning. Okay, so the first move is, of course, pretty easy, right? The knight e3. But, of course, he had something in mind. He didn't just miss it completely. He had in mind playing e7 here, and he thought that he's still winning, and that's the line he calculated. So what did he miss? Who can tell us what he missed? All right, I see a lot of answers. Okay, so rook takes d4, of course, is probably what he calculated, and he probably said, aha, well then I'm going to be smart. I'm not going to play e8 queen because of rook d1, rook f1, but there is rook takes e3, and white is winning. So probably when he saw this line, he said, aha, I got him. Like all the forcing lines just don't work. Cannot take because of knight f5, cannot even do rook d4 because of rook e3. And at this point, he probably already thinks, okay, the game is over, right? So he figured, okay, this is the natural ending to the game. I calculate all the forcing lines for my opponent, and they're all winning. So like, what is there more to calculate? But the big problem is that I can go king f7, right? And the problem with king f7 is that I keep the same threats and I stop all his threats. And now he really has no more win. Now, this is interesting philosophical question. Why he missed this idea? There are several explanations. One explanation is that he already relaxed, right? Another thing is he probably, did not, want a game to go along. So he was looking at the most forcing lines. And so he just really wanted to make forcing lines work, right? And so that's why he, didn't calculate carefully enough. He only looked at forcing lines and did not look at quiet moves, quiet defensive moves, right? It's also psychological thing, right? So which is why even when we have a winning position, we cannot relax. We have to consider all of opponents' ideas, all of opponents' defensive ideas. And no, he was not in time pressure. He still had like 10, 15 minutes. And finally, another explanation here could be that right now, King f7 is an illegal move, right? When the opponent's on e6. But once he moves here, he's not controlling this square anymore, right? So this could also be partially a visualization error, right? Psychological, because this happens a lot in chess, right? When we forget that we don't control a certain square anymore, right? In our mind, the pawn is King f7 is still not a legal move, right? And so we have to always be careful about this kind of mistake, in this kind of error in our games. We have to try to be very careful with visualizing. Yeah, and of course, white can still make a draw, but that's not what he wants, right? Rook e3 takes knight f5, and yeah, this leads to a draw. But at this point, obviously in his mind, he already won the game. So for him, like, drawing lines are horrible, right? And here he made another psychological mistake. There is like very common mistake that we all make sometimes is like when we see an option, like let's say option A, and we don't like the outcome of it, we just say, okay, I cannot play that, right? I cannot make a draw. Like, I won the game. How am I going to make a draw now? I have to keep winning chances. So people, a person can just automatically eliminate something like, let's say, rook takes e3 because it leads to a draw, and say, okay, I have to do something else. But that something else might just be a blunder, might be much worse. But the problem is they wouldn't look at it objectively or carefully enough, because they would fall into this fallacy error of just looking at the other move, right? Like realizing that option A does not work, right? So that means it has to be option B. But very often what happens is option A is not great, but it still might be the best option you have amongst like a bunch of unpleasant options. Like, I'll give you an example, right? Let's say you have a big difficult test in school coming up, right? And studying for that test is a very big hassle, right? Doing homework is a hassle, doing the project is a big hassle. Like, it's not a very pleasant thing to do. So you might say, okay, well, it's very unpleasant, so let me just not do it. But of course, not doing it might be even worse, right? Because then you don't get then you don't become educated. You might not get a school degree, it's it's way worse. And the same thing with chess, right? It's you may say, okay, I'll just be lazy and do something I enjoy, not work on my weaknesses. But then you don't improve properly on your chess, right? So this is the same kind of mistake we have during chess thinking sometimes, like seeing that we have option A that we don't like, we just eliminate it automatically and don't even, compare the lines properly. And this is the kind of mistake that occurs all the time, which is why I kind of wanted to emphasize it. And so, yeah, here he played rook d2, which of course is everybody, even at 1200, could spot that it's a blunder because of rook takes d4. And now white can resign. He tried a couple of more moves, but after a couple of careful moves blocking the pawn, the game was over. So yeah, as you could see, even great players fall victims to something like this. And now I want to show you another game with this kind of thing. This is a game Akobian against Caruana. My opponent was Pavel Lyanov, 2700 plus GM. Yeah, and this was a game, Kobian against Caruana from 2017 US Championship. And yeah, so let's see what happened here. So as you could see here, Black is just up 2 points for nothing, right? 2 points for nothing. And and not to make matters worse for Varakobian, he was also Fabiano made time control, so he had 30 minutes to basically convert this position, right? So you could imagine how it's possible for Fabiano to not only not win the game, but even to lose the game, right? But miracles do happen sometimes in chess, right? If you really fight till then. So I mean, some people saw this game before, right? So I'll quickly skim through it, right? It was Fabiano kind of played not very carefully. Like, for example, Queen D6, Queen D2 was probably much easier. But Rook D6, Knight C3, Queen E7, okay. And already it's like not so easy, like B6 is becoming weak, right? So the good thing about VAR is that he always fights till the end, right? And in this game, he also fought till the end. I think he said in an interview that even though he saw he had a lost position, he certainly didn't necessarily believe he'll lose. Like, he really was looking for ways to try to make it hard for opponent to win, right? And just by playing resilient moves, not caving in early on. And sometimes that's enough to really frustrate your opponent, just enough to, unnerve them, and they start playing a little bit worse. And then suddenly you get your chances, right? The key is not just to kind of fall apart when you're losing, but really to try to be resilient. And somehow Black lost the pawn, right? Played it a little inaccurately. It's still probably winning, by the way. Like, for example, Queen D2, like, it's a good chance. But, he played inaccurately, and this was already close to a draw. And, after they played bunch of moves, yeah, like this is still Black is still pressing, but this is way closer to a draw. Yeah, and finally we reached this critical moment, right? Where at this point, I'm sure Fabi also assumed he's going to win the game. And, he probably was petrified of the possibility of the draw, right? And he started looking at the lines and he was like freaking out probably because he said, Queen F6, Queen E4, it's a draw. Knight F6, Knight G4, then I can take on E4, it's a draw. King here, Queen there, right? So how on earth do I play for a win? King G8, Knight G4. So he said, okay, well, nothing works. So like, what else can I try? I have to try F6. At least I kick away the knight. And okay, if he plays this endgame, he probably expected something like this, but at least here he can still kind of play for a long time, maybe have winning chances. But obviously, yeah, there's Queen A7 check. And surprisingly enough, Black is just lost, right? He just simply gets mated. So again, it looks like a completely unlosable position, but here you are, like, here you go. Black blundered because he probably could never possibly have imagined that he will lose this position, right? And, just did not consider even this possibility of losing at this moment, right? And just said, okay, I can't make a draw, so I have to do something else. But that something else, he did not analyze properly as a result, right? So it's the same kind of psychological mistake that happened in the Ilyanov game. Easily winning endgame, 2 pawns up, probably relaxed very early, plenty of time on the clock, but the brain kind of just like fell asleep on both of them. And these are great players we're talking about. Fabiano Caruana played in the World Championship match a year later, right? And Pablo Ulyanov, like top 10 player in the world at some point, right? And even at that time, 2,700 plus. But it happens. It happens in chess. It happens to the best of us. I'll show you another crazy thing that happened once. This is my game against Hikaru Nakamura in the 2012 US Championship. It was a long time ago. Now, I'm not going to go over this game very deeply because I actually covered this game on chess.com It's I've back in the days when I used to do some videos on chess.com, I've actually done some videos on psychology, like not being afraid of your opponent, and I covered that game there in that video in more deeply. So I'm not gonna go over it here. I'm just gonna refer you to that chess.com video. I think it was 2013. I did that video in 2013 or something. Basically, I just wanted to bring you to the very end. Basically, the story of this game was that I was better in the middle game, but because I was so scared of Hikaru, instead of like trying to play for a win, I would just like move the king back and forth. Instead of trying to like play c5 or something and play for a win. But anyway, we had like a very long shuffle. It was like a 120 move game. And eventually, after like a long struggle, it was a fortress. And then he did something completely insane. Like you think that, okay, how can you possibly lose this position, right? With white, like in this position, I would probably even, take a draw against, 1600 here with black. I mean, there's like, how do I lose? How can white lose here, right? Just no way to lose. But Hikaru found the way. Like he played this insane move before. He was so frustrated on the fact that he couldn't win the game. He just lashed out on before, completely forgetting that, king b3 does not work because of knight d2. And now suddenly, like, black is close to winning, maybe winning in this position. The only problem is, as soon as I took on b4, he offered a draw, and I did not realize I was winning. I was so happy at that time with the draw. I didn't even like give myself time to think, to realize that I might actually be winning, that my opponent could have done something so extreme, right? And I took the draw. But anyway, like even in a position like that, like if you really lose focus, something like this could happen, right? So don't ever go reckless like that, right? It's not. He almost cost himself the U.S. Championship title that year because had he lost this game, I don't think he would have won the U.S. Championship. All right, so this is actually a game that Caruana Fabiano won against Magnus Carlsen. That was also a while back, like I think 2013 or something. And in this game, I'm just gonna skip through the opening. And at some point, black was able to outplay white in this game. And yeah, basically they reached this opposite color bishop endgame where black is up a pawn and like white has no winning chances, right, whatsoever. I mean, I'm sure that if most of you would offer Magnus a draw here, he would take it. I mean, or Fabiano, right? Because there's just no way you can possibly imagine white could win. Like I would probably take a draw with white against almost anyone, pretty much anyone above 2000, because there's just no way really to lose this. But again, it's always possible to overpress, right? And believe it or not, Magnus lost this. I mean, Magnus really wanted to win. He kept pushing, but I mean, he was fine. Like he eventually activated the king. He might have been winning at some point, I don't remember. But you might ask, how did he lose? He overpressed. At some point, he brought the king in. He took some risks, and he kind of abandoned e6, and then he really abandoned e6. And now the game got super complicated, right? It became a race. He gave white a passed pawn, and now he allowed this sack, right? And now all of a sudden, white has these good pawns. The bishop on h4 stops black's counterplay, and turns out white's pawns are stronger than black's. And eventually in this complicated endgame, he lost it, right? So I mean, if you overpress, it's always possible to lose, right? Even a position that looks completely unlosable. yeah, and here's a game I played against Titus Stremovicius in he's a GM 2500 in a recent in my most recent tournament, and this game basically broke my tournament. Like, I was doing well at the moment, 3.5 out of 4, and everything was going fine, and I was having this game where, you know, I kind of had a risk-free position, but then it all fell apart. So I'm gonna skip through the opening nuances. Guys, I want you guys to please stay on topic and stop talking about some random things, okay? It's a serious class. So Queen C3, Rook B1, B5, Queen D1, Queen B3, Knight E5, Rook D1. Yeah, this position is close to equal, but I think I have like the slightly better chances because of the central pawns. So Rook D1, Knight takes F3, Bishop takes F3, Rook D8, Bishop D5, G6, yeah, E4. Yeah, now I'm already much better because the move Knight takes F3 was imprecise. He needed to play probably Rook D8 and then Rook C8. So Rook D8, Bishop D5, G6, E4, King G7, Rook C2, Rook D7, Queen E3, because I wanted to stop Bishop G5, Rook C7, takes, Rook C1, Queen E5, G3, stopping Bishop G5 again, Rook E8. And here he sort of blundered the pawn in Queen A7, Rook E7, Queen A6. Yeah, so I mean, I thought, okay, I mean, I would be, at this point, I was very optimistic because not only was I up a pawn, but I was also way up on time. I had like 45 minutes or something, and he had like 10 or 15 minutes. And there was no second time control, just 30-second increment. But unfortunately, you know, the game went south for me. Queen B2, Queen C6, Queen D2. Okay, so interesting moment here. This is, I think, where, you know, it started to go a little bit wrong for me, because I chose, you know, like not the most practical plan. What do you guys think White should do here? I think F4 is a little dangerous here because I'll go Bishop. Yeah, I think I can even go perpetual check. No, I think this is way too risky. I mean, you're risking quite a lot here. Naranyan Venkatesh, do you wanna you know, unmute and explain?
Okay, so I played Queen C2 because you're just up a clean pawn, and if you trade queens, you just go into a simplified endgame with a much better bishop. Actually, maybe it's not much better, but it's on an outpost, and it has a pretty good diagonal. This B5 is also a weakness, and the A2 pawn is protected. So I think that trading queens would just lead to a much better endgame.
Yeah, of course, you're up a pawn. And I think the biggest point here is that it eliminates the risk of losing, right? It really eliminates I mean, with the queens on the board, as you'll see, bad things can still happen. Without the queens, I mean, it will really take like colossal blunder to lose the game. I mean, a queen is a very tricky piece, right? Things can still go wrong with because the queen controls a lot of squares, right? So when the queens are on the board, it's always more possible to make a mistake. But after Queen C2, it really eliminates a lot of losing chances and still keeps winning chances on the board. right? So practically, it's a good solution, even though maybe it's not easy to win this endgame, but certainly I can torture him for a long time. And the second point is that my king is a little weaker than his, right? The bishop on d4 will start hitting f2, right? And my king is slightly exposed, right? And so could be a little dangerous, could be a little bit tricky with the queens. I played rook c2. I was thinking he'll go check. I go king g2, and then I didn't really see what he's gonna do. And I got greedy. I wanted to keep both the queen and the rook, so that maybe someday I will go rook c5, queen rook c8, and mate him or something. But of course, it's not so easy. He played a good move here, queen d3, keeping control over the position. I had to go king g2 anyway. It's not much better I can do. An interesting move, h5. Trying to get counterplay with h4. Now in this position, I'm still better if I play f4, because if h4, I have e5. But I played h4, and I was thinking, well, I didn't see too many problems here. But here Black played a strong move. What do you guys think Black should do? So bishop e5, I see the point. You're trying to go rook c7. But I think in that case, I will go queen. Wait, queen c5, is that a move? Rook c7, queen c7. Yeah, maybe I can actually do this. I can sack the queen here and then take 7. This actually has, has trouble written for Black, because I'm gonna take f7. Bishop on d5 is very strong. I control everything, and at some point g6 might be weak as well. So I can also consider just queen c8 and then moving the rook up. So bishop e5 doesn't have very much bite, and rook c7 is not even a threat. If we play b4, then we can go queen c4, potentially. Try to exchange the queens. So this is kind of also a relief for us. So let's see. Vihan looks like he got it, but I already called on him today, so let's see if anyone else gets it. I want to try to call on someone who I haven't yet today. g5, at the very least, I can take, and I can play f4. Bishop f6, e5. And if here, I can also play queen c3 at the very least. I can play queen c3 at the very least, if I want. Queen d1, I think, is... I can probably play queen c8 or queen c5. Oh, I see bishop h4, you're one threaten. Yeah, maybe, I think queen c8 maybe is the move. Yeah. Queen c8. Oh. Yeah, queen g4, we're gonna take it, yeah. And then rook c5. Yeah. Yes, Sefer, that idea comes a little bit later. All right, Sefer, explain your idea to us. I don't think I called on you yet.
So my idea was to play bishop d4, to then play rook a7 and rook a3.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's very powerful. I think if we play rook a7 first, maybe I can play like rook c5. So I'm not so sure about that. Or maybe rook c1 with the idea of queen c2. Rook a7 right away is interesting. I'm curious why it doesn't work as well, actually. It's a good question. Let's see. Yeah, rook c1 looks like the only move. 1 second, my chess base is freezing. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think the zoom and Stockfish 14 is too much combination. Yeah, rook c1, yes. And if rook a3, I think, what's the point here? What's the idea? What's the idea? Wow. Oh, yeah, bishop b3, of course, yeah. Yeah, just bishop b3. Yeah, and white consolidates. So bishop d4 is better because then we can't really play bishop b3 because e4 hangs. Now, in retrospect, I should have still done that because at least here I would never lose. And, you know, I can play a little for a win. I'm going to win the f7 point. It's a very drawish though. I played queen c8. And and actually the point also of this move was if I go to c1 and then at this point I was really queens. I realized that I would not mind getting queens off, but it was already a little bit too late because the problem was there is bishop takes f2, and he just perpetuates me. And so I played c8. I thought it's a very clever move because then I'm gonna play rook c1, and now I'm covering. So like let's say he plays like I don't know some random move. I don't know what move, like king h7. I'm gonna go rook c1, takes here, and I'm gonna escape. I'm gonna escape via h3, and I thought it's very clever. But the problem is, as Steffer said already, queen c8, he found a very strong move, rook a7, which I just did not see. Rook a7, rook a3, very strong idea. And suddenly all his three pieces are just creating counterplay. And here I really wished I would have traded queens. And here I was thinking forever. And I just could not find what to do. And there's just nothing I can do anymore to win the game. It was incredible. I was shocked. I had this extra pawn and I just could not stop his counterplay. Position is already that equal. So yeah, I mean, rook c7 would have been, of course, you know, the most practical, you know, because then he really has to go with queen d2, and then I can go back, and then okay, we're gonna make a draw. And at this point, I was, unlike the previous cases, I was actually already accepted the fact that it's a draw. Like I knew that I wanted to win the game, but at this point I said, okay, fine. I mean, I missed the defense. He defended really well. I kind of was I was already kind of acceptant on the fact that it's going to be a draw, and which is why I played queen c6. Queen c6, and I was thinking, okay, he's going to go rook a6. I was kind of also secretly hoping that there's rook e7, and then I was going to try bishop b3. But he played rook a6, and then I played queen c7, and at this point I accepted. He had like 3 minutes left, so I expected him to just play rook a7, and we're going to agree to a draw. But then, to my horror, he played rook f6, and I was like, what? I didn't even see this. Like, I didn't even see like a possibility that there could be a winning attempt for black. Like, what on earth is this? And now, what is the only defense for white? Well, e5 is what I played. So if you thought e5, congratulations, you played like a GM. But alas, it's not a good idea in this case. Yes, we have to play f4. After f4, it's still a draw. Yeah, queen d1, you can play e5, and it's takes a bishop f3. I'm still making a draw. But e5, bishop e5. And it was just like crazy because it just all happened in such an instant, because I played e5 and I was thinking, why is he playing rook f6? Like I thought, okay, e5, his idea is maybe rook f5 and some complications here. And I thought, okay, but I mean, at least I'm not going to lose here. It looks like I can always bail out to a draw. And then bishop e5 shows up on the board. And then I realized that my rook is hanging on c2. I just didn't see it. And to my horror, I realized that not only am I not making a draw, I'm just losing. Like, it's just such a bad luck that this happens to just be completely lost. Like, okay, sometimes when you blunder like this, like from a looks like a better position, okay, you might be slightly worse or it might be a draw, but you're still in the game. But this one happened to just be completely lost for me. Like, there's absolutely nothing to be done. My only move is queen c5 to keep everything defended. And then comes this. And I just couldn't believe what just happened. Now my only move is like queen c7 or queen c8. And then he just takes here. And then he takes here. And then he goes here. And he transposes into a winning pawn again. And I just couldn't believe. I sat there in complete disbelief. And I just quickly resigned and then signed score sheets and left. I couldn't stay there. It was just such a shock, like the way the game transpired. Yeah, I guess I must have done something bad to the game of chess for it to do something like this to me. But then when I collected all material for this lesson, I realized that, okay, certainly this loss is not. There could be way worse than this, and I'll show you. There's kind of gonna be worse than this. I think the same routines I might have even shown in the last class about transitions of the king at pawn endgame, but just a little bit of a reminder here. Like, it seems like this one I cannot lose, right? Up a pawn queen endgame, but wrong. You could lose if you want to decline the draw so badly and just look for any winning chances, and then you forget to look at opponent's ideas and allow queen c5 and queen d7 and queen here and queen here, right? Yeah, so that's I think even worse, right? So I basically had 2 such losses in the last 2 tournaments. So I really have to consider that I probably have done something very bad to chess in the last few months to deserve that. Or maybe it's just a weakness that I forget to consider opponent's idea. And this is also from my last tournament, which I also, I think, might have shown at some times. And okay, this like, you can possibly imagine that you can lose this. But like here, I thought that that's it, the game is lost. Like, it's just mate. Like rook h3, queen f3, and I thought, like, this is over, it's mate. I was playing a lower rated player. And I thought, okay, I calculated till then, and it's mate. But no. My opponent found some ideas. King g1, rook takes h3, and queen c1. Already a move I did not see. Now comes queen c6 and e4. Suddenly I have to calculate. Now, of course, I could have still won pretty easily with queen e4, queen takes, king h5. And the reason I didn't play it is because I thought, okay, rook h7 and queen d5, it's going to be still a little bit of a hassle to get out of the checks and still convert this. But of course, this is winning. I'm getting out of checks. So I thought, let's play king h5. Let's play it safe. Let's play queen e4 next move and win the game. But then came rook e7, and I'm like, what is this rook e7? Like, somehow I just didn't see this move at all. And this was already a draw. And I was in such a shock how I blew the win that this was still a draw endgame, but I ended up losing it. I ended up blundering absolutely everything and like king g7, king h7 still leads to a draw. Although at this point I already saw hallucinations and I thought I'm losing, but I'm still making a draw. But I played like this, thinking that, she'll play here and I'll play here. And I was hoping to try to salvage this queen endgame. But then queen came queen d8. Pretty nice surprise. And then I have nothing to do than to resign. And here came queen g3. By the way, from what I understand, queen endgames is probably the most common places where, you know, games that look like you cannot lose, you know, are lost. Queens are just very, very tricky. And two kind of, and the last two examples are kind of even more extreme that I wanted to show. This is from 2017. A game I played against GM Kaichi. At that point, I am Kaichi Young. I outplayed him like in a very nice game, and we reached this queen endgame, which is winning, but okay, it still requires a little bit of technique. But you know, it looks like, yeah, you cannot lose. Maybe white gets perpetual somewhere, but how to lose this? But I managed to find the one way to lose. I played queen c2, allowing queen e1. That was probably the worst blunder I've made ever in my chess career. Just blundered, checkmate in one move. As soon as I played queen c2 and let go, I just, you know, couldn't believe what I just did, to my horror. Did I already play against Corey? Yeah, I've played him a few times, I think. Yeah. By the way, d2, which was also my intention, was also blowing the win because of this and queen a2. But the point is that, yeah, even in a winning game like this, you have to be very careful. And finally, I want to show not my example as a recap. This was actually a game recently in the World Rapid Championship. Rasmus Swani, 2600 GM against Anish Giri. Now, Anish Giri is someone who famously said that he always has it in his mind that he can lose the position. Like, and that's, I think, one of the main reasons why he rarely loses. Because like he's able to control himself from overpressing. He like always reminds himself, it's always possible to lose. It's always possible to lose. And it's quite unique that he was the one who was able to kind of do a little swindle on his opponent. You know, now again, like how can you possibly lose this? Like it's queen and 2 pawns against black only has a queen, right? So how do you lose? But actually, this was a little tricky. Queen h6 made this threatened, and white played what looked like a logical move. Played king h5, stopping that. It looks fine. But here came queen h2, queen h6. Actually, white resigned after queen h2. So yeah, I mean, it just goes to show like any position, no matter what, is losable, right? That means you have to make sure you never lose concentration and always keep that in your head, right? That it is always possible to lose, right? And same way if you're defending a losing position or bad position where it seems like you cannot win, you can always win, right? There's always a chance, right? Well, almost always anyway, right? Okay, not if you have no mating material, but there's always some chance, even if you only have a queen on the board, right? This is probably the most extreme example of all, right? But like a GM lost. So I feel like this is like a very important lesson for all of you to keep in mind. If strong GMs, is this position winning for white? Yes, I think it is. But yeah, king h4 actually does not win already because queen f4. But I think and f6 I think also does not win anymore. Yeah, this is already actually a little tricky. Queen a7 is the only winning move. Actually, yeah, in this position, it's like only queen a7 wins. Everything else actually leads to a draw. So it's already a little bit tricky. But I mean, you can imagine drawing this, right? But losing this, that's something else, right? But yeah, that chess is a tricky game. And I'm sure I didn't even include like all of them, right? I remember, I think in an online tournament, Van Fortis lost to like Aronian or something in some queen endgame also, right? Well, Karane Zoria was, I remember that game, but that was actually a tricky knight endgame. I mean, that one, I mean, seemed like very normal compared to like the examples I showed. But yeah, that's another game where Caruana kind of overpressed. Yeah, I mean, to some extent he should not lose, but it was less extreme than the ones I showed, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm sure you can find many examples like that, right? But the lesson is it's always possible to lose, right? And you have to always keep that in mind and kind of be aware, improve your sense of danger. That's a very important quality that we all should try to develop, including myself. Because as you've seen, it's happened to me a fair share of times. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this lesson, and good luck to all of you. And I hope, hopefully you'll be on the winning side of these kind of wins and not on the receiving end. Yeah, my lead chess Alex Lenderman, just Alex Lenderman. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.